Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we're going to present the comparison of performance between Islamic bank and conventional bank. Malaysian banking system consists of Bank Negara Malaysia and banking institutions which are finance companies, commercial banks, miscellaneous group, merchant banks and Islamic banks that are representative offices of foreign banks and discount house. Islamic banking is a financial institution with Islamic norm and directive as defined for the betterment of socio-economic development as the benefit of the society with the commercial viability of the monetary affair, ventures and transaction in gaining and disposal of basic needs and resources. Islamic banking is also known as non-interest banking as it prohibits collecting interest or riba. It is based on Islamic principles as taught in the Quran and Sharia. Its financial transactions are culturally distinct form of ethical investing. Activities that involve interest, gambling and speculative trading are prohibited. In Malaysia, it has been set up in 1983 and had regulated under Islamic Banking Act 1983. Conventional banking is limited to the monetary affairs and to the monetary markets with a purpose to gain monetary benefits regardless it is halal or haram. It is based on fully man-made principle, hence it aims at maximizing profit without any restriction at the cost of other stakeholders. Interest is the main source of income that is charged on different types of loans or products. For example of Islamic bank are CIMB Islamic, RHB Islamic, Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad and Bank Muamalat. And for conventional bank, Maybank Berhad, CIMB, Public Bank, RHB Bank and Hong Leong Bank Berhad.
Next, let's move on to the comparison of performance between Islamic bank and conventional bank. Financial performance includes four main areas, which is profitability, liquidity, risk and solvency, and efficiency. First is profitability and performance. Profitability ratio is the basic financial ratio used to evaluate bank performance in terms of profit. It is also indicates the bank ability to generate return after deducts all the expenses and other costs within the time period. The financial position of Bank Negara Malaysia, BNM, remains strong for the year ended 31 December 2009, which the total assets amounted to RM 551.6 billion with a net profit of RM 8.9 billion. Malaysia's Islamic banks are less profitable than conventional banks. We can see the performance of Islamic banks and conventional banks from 2010 to 2014. The report shows that net profit on income ratio with the Islamic bank showing a smaller percentage, which is 18%, in comparison to that of 27% for the conventional banks. The performance of the banks was taken from annual audited financial statement, then was analyzed using return on average assets and return on average equity. Conventional banks were found to be more profitable because of higher financing and quality of asset is better than Islamic banks. It indicates that the Islamic banks' lower financing may due to the limited financing offered to customers compared to conventional banks, as the financing must be in Sharia compliant. For instance, Bank Muamalat is better in terms of profitability if compared to Bank Islam, as the financing is higher and the asset quality is better than Bank Islam. In a research regarding the performance of Malaysia's Islamic and conventional banks, Islamic banks are found to be less efficient than conventional banks. Even Islamic banks offer more ethical products and services such as no riba. Second is liquidity and performance. Liquidity ratios evaluate the ability of the banks to pay back its short-term debt obligation. This study had evaluated Islamic banks' performance in Malaysia, which is Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad. When compared to conventional banks, Bank Islam are more liquid. The statistics from Bank Negara Malaysia also indicate that liquidity of the Islamic banks is better, which is 0.8869 in comparison to the conventional banks, which is 0.8372. the financial performance had been measured using financial ratio, which consists of qualitative and quantitative contexts. Liquidity ratios used in this study are cash deposit ratio, loan deposit ratio, current ratio, and current asset ratio. T-test is used to determine the significant level of the means. In addition, the main reason why financing of Islamic bank under Mudarabah and Musyarakah profit sharing in Malaysia is still lower due to the bankers is generally lack of knowledge in terms of managing, selecting and evaluating a profitable project. Mudarabah means sleeping partner contributes capital and other knowledge, and Musyarakah means the financier takes a direct stake in the venture. Next, why Bank Islam need to maintain high liquidity? Firstly, it is due to the need to guarantee customers' deposit and trust. Secondly, Islamic banks has less scope of investment as investment in non-Sharia is not permitted. Thirdly, loan and investment are limited only for a short term that involve low risk. Next, the bank is not afford to bear loss and give a bad reputation to the whole Islamic banking system. Lastly, Islamic bank is not relying so much to borrowed fund. There are several factors contributed to higher liquidity of Bank Islam when the comparison was made with conventional banks. Firstly, this is because of small scope of investment where it can only invest in Sharia compliance projects. Secondly, major loan and investment are only short-term, such as Murabaha, where the investment is only short-term and involve low risk. Lastly, the need to maintain good reputation of Islamic banking as the bank is still new compared to the conventional banks and the bank is not affordable to bear any losses.
Next is risk and solvency performance. Risk and solvency are calculated by using debt equity ratio, debt to total asset ratio, and loan deposit ratio. It was used to indicate the ability of bank to generate more cash and the ability to pay its long-term financial obligation. The banks are solvent if the total assets are higher than total liability, and the bank will be risky if insolvent. Ratios also measure the risk of default due to debt obligation. The higher the debt, the higher the probability of default, which lead the banks to bankruptcy or financial distress. According to Bank Negara Malaysia Annual Report 2019, COVID-19 had given strong impact to economic, which made the risk of financial stability increases. There is a significant difference between performance of risk and solvency of Islamic banks and conventional banks. During financial crisis, Islamic banks are not much affected than conventional banks. This shows that Islamic banks are much better and stable than conventional banks. According to Bank Negara Malaysia's monthly statistical bulletin, the bank's stability has been analysed using Z-score and non-performing loans. Z-score is higher for Islamic banks, which indicate that Islamic banks are not very risky as compared to conventional banks. In terms of NPL, conventional banks are found to be riskier, where the NPL for conventional banks are higher than Islamic banks. Even though factors affecting the stability for both types of banks are similar, except for degree of income diversification, we found out that Islamic banks are more resistant and the probability to default is lower, which indicate that Islamic banks' stability are higher compared to conventional banks. It can be concluded that from comparison of Islamic banks and conventional banks, Islamic banks are less risky than conventional banks. Lastly is efficiency performance. Efficiency ratios, which are asset utilization, equity turnover, and operating efficiency, measure the bank's effectiveness and efficiency in make use of its asset and shareholder equity to generate revenue, quality of receivable, how well the bank's managing its collection, payment timeliness to supplier or creditor, efficiency in inventory management, and how well it's control their expenses. In Malaysia, Islamic banks' performance recorded high efficiency compared to conventional banks. This is because Islamic banks are more efficient in profit where it able to generate more profit than conventional banks, even lack of experience in banking industry. Dehumanization and justice are the factor that attracted the customer to do the business with Islamic banks compared to conventional banks, which exposed to interest base. Customers of conventional banks who took loans had suffered losses as the interest rates for conventional banks are fluctuating based on economic condition. Therefore, during the crisis, many customers had chosen Islamic banks as it offered fixed interest rate along the tenure and offered product and services similar to conventional banks but comply to Sharia.
Malaysia is one of the countries that has adopted a dual banking system, which are Islamic banking and conventional banking. Islamic banking is based on Sharia compliance and only deal with approved Islamic products with no interest base, while conventional banking involved with interest regardless it is halal or haram. There are pros and cons in both types of banking products. The difference is just in ideologies, but both run on a pretty similar concepts. Gradual development of Islamic banking had created a competition with conventional banking. Since Islamic banking offered products under Islamic principle, most of Muslims preferred Islamic banking rather than conventional banks. However, some people still in doubt and argue on Islamic banks' performance.
That's all from us. Thank you.